सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्गस्थितिप्रलयहेतुमचिन्त्य शक्तिं विश्वेश्वरं विदितविश्वमनन्तमूर्तिं निर्मुक्तबन्धनमपारसुखाम्बुराशिं श्रीवल्लभं विमलबोधगणं नमामि। यस्य प्रसादादहमेव विष्णुः मय्येव सर्वं परिकल्पितं च इत्थं विजानामि सदात्मरूपं तस्याङ्घ्रिपद्मं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम्। Okay, we'll read from verse 43. Okay. हित्वा द्वौ शबलौ वाच्यौ वाक्यं वाक्यार्थबोधने यथा प्रवर्तते स्माभिः तथा व्याख्यातमादरात्। आलम्बनतया भाति योऽस्मत्प्रत्ययशब्दयोः अन्तःकरणसम्भिन्न बोधः सत्त्वं पदाभिदः। मायोपाधिर्जगद्योनिः सर्वज्ञत्वादिलक्षणः पारोक्ष्यबलः सत्यादि आत्मकस्तत्पदाभिदः। प्रत्यक्परोक्षतैकस्य सद्वितीयत्वपूर्णता विरुध्यते यतस्तस्मात् लक्षणा सम्प्रवर्तते। मानान्तरविरोधे तु मुख्यार्थस्य परिग्रहे मुख्यार्थेना विना भूते प्रतीतिर्लक्षणोच्यते। तत्त्वमस्यादिवाक्येषु लक्षणा भागलक्षणा सोऽयमित्यादिवाक्यस्थ पदयोरिव नापरा। So what have we seen so far? Tat and tvam, these two words, that and thou, and their meanings, which we call vāchyārtha, their direct or literal meanings. Tvam means the object of the I word and I thought. So when we say I, when we say you, what do you think of when someone says you? You think of I. Say I, this is me. So that is the direct meaning of tvam, I, the object of the I thought, I word. And what is the direct meaning of the word tat? Of the word tat or that is Ishvara, Mayopadi Jagadyoni, the one who has the conditioning of Maya, the one who is the womb of this universe, the creator, the sustainer, the dissolver of this universe. This is what we know to be tat or that. So tvam is you or I, and tat is God. And then what happens is when we try to put together the direct meaning, which will amount to saying you are God, we find that there's a virodha. We find that there's a contradiction, because how can we be God? We are so tiny, we are so limited, God is all pervading, God is all knowing. So what do we have to do? We take the lakshyartha, the implied meaning. And the implied meaning for both is pure consciousness. And we come to this using what we call bhagatyaga lakshana or jahad ajahal lakshana, meaning we negate the contradictory parts and we keep the essence. Why are we doing this? Why are we taking the implied meaning or the deeper meaning instead of the direct meaning? Because we have faith that there is something to this Mahavakya. It's been said so many times. It's been realized by great masters. It is in our Upanishads. So there must be something there. And therefore, we dig deeper and take the implied meaning. And when we take the implied meaning, we negate the individual body, mind, intellect complex, because these are appearances in consciousness. The body changes. When we go to dream state, we take up a different body. And in deep sleep, we have no body. So the mind changes, the intellect changes. All of these things change and they are appearing in consciousness. So therefore, they are negated. They're negated not just because they're temporary, but also because they're false. So remember the example that we talked about last time, right? That this body, right? This body is not just temporary, it is also false because it cannot exist without consciousness. On its own, it cannot exist. And because it has a dependent existence in consciousness, we say it is false. Because the mind has a dependent existence, it depends on consciousness, we say that the mind is false. So it's not just a matter of being temporary, it is actually a falsity. It's actually a falsity. And because it's a falsity, this body, mind, intellect, they are negated. Because the ego is a falsity, it is negated. The ego is something that does not actually exist. It cannot survive upon inquiry. Something very beautiful that was brought up in this text called Naishkarmya Siddhi is that if we keep prying and prying and prying into the ego, it disappears. It disappears, right? So you keep questioning it, keep prying into it, and it itself dissolves. So that very ego which we take ourselves to be, which we feel that we are, this very ego dissolves. So we negate that. And what is left when we negate all of these false appearances, the body, the mind, the intellect, what is left is pure consciousness. In the word tvam. And in the same way, in tat, for Ishvara, we negate the total, gross, subtle, and causal universe. Why? The same thing. It's a falsity. It's a falsity because it's not just temporary, but it actually gets negated. The whole waking world gets negated in dream. The whole dream world gets negated in deep sleep. So because these things actually get negated, called badita, they are not only temporary, but they are false and they cannot exist without consciousness. So the sense of Ishvara being a creator, a sustainer, and dissolver, that is only in the apparent sense. Once we negate that waking world, dream world, deep sleep, blankness, it's not really a world, then what we're left with is also pure consciousness. So then, when we equate pure consciousness with pure consciousness, it makes sense. Tat tvam asi. You are pure consciousness. That's what it means, right? So this method where we negate or remove a part and keep the essence, this is called bhaga tyaga lakshana. Bhaga tyaga, we remove a part and we keep the essence. And it was also said that this is not something that's irregular. We do this every day. That example, like Devadatta. So we saw somebody before, years ago. His name is Devadatta, and he looked different. It was a different time. It was a different place. And now he looks different. It's a different time. It's a different place. And how do we equate the two Devadattas? Is we let go of the contradictory times, places, appearances. We let go of all the contradictory notions and we just keep the essence of the person. And we get to that. So this is not something unique to Vedanta. That's what it's trying to say. We do this every day. Now, having analyzed this statement very clearly, tat tvam asi, having really inquired into this and analyzed this, the question comes, who gets it and who doesn't get it? And what should we do until we get it? So maybe we can make this equation in our head. We're very good at it. Tvam means this, tat means this, and we have this clear comprehension, clear equation in our head. But have we made that subjective equation within? Are we able to do it within ourselves? That's the question. So now we pick up from there today. We are now on verse 49. This is a very important verse. Aham brahmeti vakyartha. Aham brahmeti vakyartha. Bodho yavadridhi bhavet. Bodho yavadridhi bhavet. śamādisādhana-sampattiḥ. śamādisādhana-sampattiḥ. Abhyāsa śravaṇādikam. Abhyāsa śravaṇādikam. Aham brahmeti vakyartha. Bodho yavadridhi bhavet. śamādisādhana-sampattiḥ. Abhyāsa śravaṇādikam. So what is he saying here? In verse 49, Aham Brahma iti means I am Brahman. So that tat tvam asi, that thou art, has to come to Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So Aham Brahma, I am Brahman, Vakyartha bodha means the knowledge of the meaning of this. The knowledge of the meaning of this statement, yavadridhi bhavet, until it becomes firm, until it becomes drida. Drida means firm, until it becomes firm. Tavat, till that time, abhyaset. Abhyaset, one should practice. One should practice what? Shravanādikam. Shravana, manana, nididhyāsanam. And śamādisādhana, along with shama, dhamma, uparamaḥ, etc. So I'll read the translation and we go one by one. Until the direct personal experience of I am Brahman is gained, We must live values of self-control, practice listening to teachers, reading scriptures, and doing daily reflection and meditation upon those ideas. So this I am Brahman, what has to happen? A very firm understanding, a very firm realization has to happen. And not of the words, I am Brahman, not a repetition of the words, but an actual internalization, a deep internalization, a deep realization has to happen of the meaning of the words. And how do I know that it's deep? How do I know that it's deep within me? Now, two things make a thing deep in the field of this knowledge. The first thing that makes something deep is it has to be without doubts and erroneous notions. So this knowledge that I am Brahman has to be free from what we call samśaya, from doubts. So if I'm still doubting, am I really Brahman? Could I really be Brahman? How is this possible? What is it really? If I still have these doubts, that is called samśaya. That means that knowledge is not firm. It is like very hazy knowledge. Then the second one is viparyaya, erroneous notions. I have understood that I am Brahman. I have reflected upon it, but I still feel like I'm an ego. But I still feel like I'm this individual. But I'm still looking outside for happiness. When there's a but, that means there's an erroneous cognition there. So we maybe know it, we may be free from doubts, but our vasanas are so strong that they won't let us live this knowledge. There's a lot of impurities. So the first thing that makes this realization firm is it has to be without doubts and without this erroneous notion, without this contradictory notion wherein I know, but I can't live. I understand, but I still feel like this. So that knowledge which is free from both of that, that is called firm. That's called firm knowledge. And that knowledge which is firm, then that's unshakable. In the Bhagavad Gita, Gurunapi navichalayet or vichalyate, it means that even a person who has such steady knowledge, even the most difficult sorrow can come to them, but they will not be shaken. Very, very steady, or what we call also sthita prajna. Now, the next thing that makes knowledge firm is it's natural. It's natural. Like if somebody asked, okay, how many of you here are married? Raise your hand. Right? It's very natural. You'll raise your hand. All right. How many of you are human beings? Oh, raise your hand. Very natural. Right? So it's so natural that you don't even have to think about it. Right? It already goes up. Already goes up. So when someone has the realization, I am Brahman, it's so natural. It's so incredibly natural that one doesn't have to think about it. As long as we're still thinking, well, how can I feel like this? I am Brahman. Why am I disturbed? I am Brahman. I am pure consciousness. Why am I going through this? I am pure consciousness. That means we're still a sadhaka. We're still practicing. And as long as we're still practicing, we should still keep practicing. But what firmness is means it's natural. So this dridha, this dridhi bhavet means this knowledge is free from doubts and erroneous notions. And it is so natural that we don't even have to think about it. Like you don't even have to think if you're a man or a woman or a human being. You naturally exude that in your living, right? You naturally exude being a human being in the way you live, or being a man or being a woman, or whatever it is, you naturally exude it in the way you live. The same way, this person doesn't have to keep saying, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. Naturally, they exude it in the way they live. They express it in the way they live. Now, what happens if we don't have this firmness? What should we do? He says, abhyāsa. Abhyāsa means practice. We have to keep practicing. Because remember, in life, nothing came to us just like that. We may not think twice about walking. Now we just go for a walk. But imagine when we first started to walk, how much practice was that, right? We were barely crawling. We could barely get up. We must have fallen hundreds of times. We were still on a walker, and then eventually we were able to walk. We may not think twice about talking. We just mutter anything and everything that comes to our mind. But remember, there was a time where we couldn't say words. We couldn't even say a letter. We just could say, ah, when we were babies, right? So there was a time when we literally could not even say a word. And now talking is so natural to us. So this didn't happen overnight. This happened because of practice. So the fact that just walking and talking, very simple, basic things that we do every day, came from a lot of practice. Even eating came from a lot of practice. The same way, this knowledge becomes firm also by practice. That's why whenever any change is required, any transformation is required, it's not enough to have a conviction. But what's also required is a practice. These two go hand in hand because the language of the intellect is conviction. Intellect can do something when it's convinced, but the language of the mind is different. The language of the mind is practice. So even if the intellect is convinced, the mind's going to say, guess what? I don't feel like it. Right? So the language of the mind is practice. And when there is the conviction from the intellect and the practice from the mind, those two come together, that knowledge is unshakable. But if there's a lack of either or, then that knowledge will be very shaky. So both are required, is abhyāsa. And abhyāsa, what do we practice? Well, śravaṇa, manana, nididhyāsana. Śravaṇa, listening to the scriptures. Manana, thinking deeply about them, reflecting upon them, removing our doubts. And nididhyāsana, silently sitting with this knowledge, getting deep into it. So whatever we have listened to in śravaṇa, whatever we have removed our doubts in through manana, that same knowledge now, sit with it, stay with it, dwell on it. That's called nididhyāsana. Nididhyāsana is that digestion process, right? So you can think about it as eating. Śravaṇa is having the food in your plate, having everything ready, putting everything together. Manana is actually taking it in and just chewing it. Just chew it, chew it, chew it, chew it, chew it. And nididhyāsana is digesting it so that it passes all the nutrients to all parts of the body. So exactly the same way. If we're just going to read and listen, nothing will happen. We have to chew, 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 and then digest. So these three are important. This is essentially jnana yoga. But don't think that that's the only thing. He says, śamādisādhana means all of those qualities, sadhana chatushtaya that we studied in Viveka Chudamani way back, right? Viveka, discernment, vairagya, dispassion, shama, control of mind, damaḥ, control of senses, uparamaḥ, control of activity, śraddhā, faith, titikṣā, forbearance, samādhānam, single-pointedness, and mumukṣutvam, a burning desire for liberation. All of these also have to be practiced alongside. So it's not enough that we study, reflect, and contemplate. We have to live a pure life, a pure life. Only when we live a pure life, this knowledge has the ability to shine. So this is where the śamādisādhana, it really means this is where all the karma yoga and the bhakti yoga and the raja yoga, all of them come into play. Without going through that, it's going to be very hard to assimilate this knowledge. Gurudev tells the story of this salt mill ant and this sugar mill ant. There was an ant which lived in a sugar mill. And there was an ant which lived in a salt mill. And the ant that lived in the sugar mill was always so excited about his food because it was so sweet, it was so nice. But the salt mill ant, he didn't like his food at all because it was always salty and bitter. He said, I don't like my food, it's really terrible. It's salty and it's bitter and I don't like it. So one day, the sugar mill ant said, come to my place and you eat my food. Try it. You'll really enjoy it. You'll really like it. So the salt mill ant went to the sugar mill ant's place. And when the salt mill ant started tasting sugar, he put it in his mouth and he spat it right out. He said, this is so bitter. This is so bitter. I can't even taste this. And the sugar mill ant said, wait a second. Come here. I think you still have salt in your mouth. Why don't you go rinse your mouth, wash your mouth, and then come back? And when the salt mill ant, when he did that, he went and he washed his mouth and he came back to the sugar mill ant's place and he tried the sugar. Then what happened? He could taste it. He could really taste it. He could enjoy it. And he was so grateful for that sugar. So here, the sugar mill ant is like the guru. The salt mill ant is like the student, the shishya. So the guru is trying to say, look, this is so sweet. This is so amazing. This is wonderful. This is the truth. But we are like the salt mill ants trying to get to the truth with our saltiness, with our bitterness, with our dirt. And with all of our dirt, we're trying to have that sugar. Obviously, it's not going to taste good. It's going to taste bitter. But when we cleanse ourselves and we go back now and we have that sugar, guess what? Then we're going to understand what the Guru means to say. Then we're going to understand what this knowledge is. So the idea of this verse is remove that salt, remove that saltiness, remove that bitterness for us to live a life of purity and remove all of that impurity so that we can taste this knowledge. Okay, so now what happens? He says in verse number 50, when one has a direct experience of Brahman, when it is gained through the teachings of the scriptures and Guru, what happens? Before we go into this verse, here you will see direct experience of Brahman. So just to clarify, and we have seen this many times, direct experience of Brahman does not mean that we experience some Brahman as an object. Direct experience of Brahman means direct realization that I am Brahman. That is the only realization. We're not going to see anything when we're quiet, nothing like that. It is. Remember, you are already that. You're already that. That you're already that. It is just the recognition that you are that. That's all. That much is there. So verse 50 now. Shrutyacharya prasadena Shrutyacharya prasadena Dridho bodho yada bhaved Dridho bodho yada bhaved Nirasta shesha samsara Nirasta shesha samsara Nidanav purushastada Nidanav purushastada Shrutyacharya prasadena Dridho bodho yada bhaved Nirasta shesha samsara Nidanav purushastada. So, Shrutyacharya prasadena, through the grace of a teacher and the scriptures, dridhaha bodhaha, there's a clear knowledge, clear realization, yatha bhaved. As soon as that happens, nirasta shesha samsara nidanaha. The person, the purusha, the seeker, becomes free, nirasta, from what? Ashesha, from all ignorance. Nidana is ignorance. From all that ignorance, which is the cause of samsara. The person becomes free from all ignorance, which is the cause of samsara. So through the grace of a spiritual teacher and the scriptures, when a seeker gains a clear and direct experience of the Supreme Self as expounded in the scriptures, the realized one becomes free from all ignorance, which is the foundation for the entire experience of this world of plurality. So here, I don't know if you remember, but we had seen this in Chandogya Upanishad also, that remember there are 4 graces that we have to get in life. There are 4 graces. And the first grace we have to get is called Atma Kripa. Atma Kripa, Kripa means grace. Atma means the grace of oneself. Meaning we have to put forth a lot of effort. This path is not, not like we don't have to do anything and sit back and relax. The first grace is the grace of our own self, where we have to put a lot of effort, lot of effort to work on ourselves, make ourselves better, to be in the right kind of company, right atmosphere, to clear our minds, to study. That's called Atma Kripa. That's non-negotiable. The second grace is Ishvara Kripa. We need the grace of God. This is also non-negotiable. This grace of God is meaning to surrender to that almighty power. Surrender. It is a surrender. The surrender is that, what is the nature of the surrender? The nature of the surrender is, I understand that in this world, I am a contributor and I am not the controller. So I will do what I can. I will work on myself. I will do my dharma. I will do whatever I need to do. But whatever the results are, I surrender to you. Meaning it's a surrender to the greater power, that being able to accept whatever the outcome is, that is called Ishvara Kripa. That is getting the grace of God, having that surrender to God, that I'm going to do what I can, whatever happens will happen, because remember, it's not in our control. And surrender to Ishvara is also surrendering our likes and dislikes. The understanding in this world that I cannot just do what I want to do and run away from what I don't want to do. There is a dharma that we have to uphold. And that dharmic living That is what we have to surrender to Ishvara for. I surrender to perform my dharma, my actions, my daily duties without likes and dislikes. To do whatever is required, I surrender to you. That is a surrender to Ishvara. And another surrender, now a deeper level of surrender to Ishvara is I surrender my desires. I don't want anything else, but I want to know you. I want to know your real nature. I want to know who you are. So when we are able to do these three things for Ishvara, surrender what? Surrender our insistence on the results of action, because we cannot control it. Surrender our likes and dislikes in any action, because we have to stick to our dharma. We have to stick to what must be done, not what we want. And being able to surrender our desires for other things, because we only want that higher. That higher. When we have this relationship with totality, with the universe, with Ishvara, then we are able to receive the third grace, which is called Guru Kripa. Means we have the grace of Guru Parampara, the teacher, teaching, all of this enters our life. It enters our life because we have worshipped Ishvara. Without the worship of God, without the connection with that totality, nothing can come to our lives just like that. We must have done something to get that Guru Kripa, to get that teacher, that teaching in our life. And when we get that grace of a teacher, Guru Parampara, the lineage of teachers, the fourth grace that comes to us is Shastra Kripa. We are then able to open up the scriptures, understand the depth of them. Because on our own, it becomes very difficult. If somebody just said, okay, open this up and read it, sometimes it's very difficult for all of us. But when we study with teachers, with our lineage, with Adi Shankaracharya ji in this text, when he opens everything up for us, then it makes sense. So realization only happens with these four graces. It will not happen otherwise. The grace of one's own self-effort, the grace of Ishvara, the grace of Guru, and the grace of Shastra, scriptures. And when scriptures reveal themselves to us, then the realization happens. When they reveal themselves to us and we internalize that scripture, that realization happens. So, Shrutyacharya prasadena, by these four graces, dridho bodho yada bhavet, this knowledge becomes firm. It becomes firm, these four graces. And it becomes firm also, remember, because of the continuous practice of śravaṇam, mananam, nididhyāsanam that we talked about in the previous verse, and the practice of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga. What happens then to this seeker? This seeker is free from that ignorance of who they are, of their real nature. And they're free from this ignorance, which is the cause of samsara. So one of our Swamijis said very beautifully, samsara means samsarati iti samsara, that which is constantly flowing, constantly moving. Flowing is called samsara. That's called samsara. That which appears, that which disappears, that which comes, that which goes, that's called samsara. For the one who has a great amount of dispassion, this world is asara, means there's no essence. There's no essence to this world. And for the one who has attained knowledge, this world is only sara, means it's only essence, it's only Brahman. It's only Brahman. So this seeker now is free from ignorance, which is the cause of samsara. So they remembered not that the world will stop, not that people will stop, not that hardships will stop. Everything will keep going on, but the vision will change. The vision now is that this is not samsara. This is just sara. This is just that Brahman appearing as this world. This is just that pure awareness appearing as this world. And when this happens, there's a great, great sense of freedom. We are no longer attached to anything. In life, we are attached to our body, our mind, our intellect, our ego, our possessions, our positions. We are attached to all of these things. And we're so attached to all of them. Why? Because we feel like they complete us. And if they complete us, then we must keep them. Not only must we keep them, we must be in control of them. But when the realization dawns that I am actually already complete in my own self, then there is no fear. Whether that person comes or goes, it's okay. Whether that thing comes or goes, it's okay. Whether this experience happens or doesn't, it's okay. Because there's no addition and subtraction in it to a realized person. They have nothing to gain, they have nothing to lose. They are just water. Everything's rising and falling in them. So they don't need anything, want anything, demand anything. Whatever happens, happens. So there's a great sense of freedom. That is called being free from ignorance. Being free from ignorance means being free from all of these attachments. Being free from all of these notions that this will complete me. I need this to complete me. Being free from these notions that these are all actually real. Being free from all of this is being free from ignorance. So when a seeker gains this realization, there's a great sense of freedom. Does that seeker die right away? Does that seeker go right away? So let's see now in the next verse. Vishirna karya karanaha, Vishirna karya karanaha, Bhuta sukshmeranavritaha, Bhuta sukshmeranavritaha, Vimukta karma nigadaha, Vimukta karma nigadaha, Sadhya eva vimuchyate, Sadhya eva vimuchyate, Vishirna karya karanaha, Bhuta sukshmeranavritaha, Vimukta karma nigadaha, Sadhya eva vimuchyate. So what happens when this seeker is free from ignorance and from these attachments? What happens? Vishirna karya karanaha. So this person is the one for whom Vishirna means it's weakened. What is weakened? Karya here means the gross body. Karana means the subtle body. So Vishirna karya karanaha, the one for whom the identification of the gross and subtle body is weakened. Bhuta sukshmaihi anavritaha. Anavritaha means one who is uncovered. Uncovered by what? Bhuta sukshma, the gross and the subtle. One who is uncovered by it. Vimukta karma nigadaha, the one who is released, vimukta, from nigada. Nigada means the bondage or the shackles of karma. Sadhya eva, immediately vimuchyate. This being is liberated. So, no more conditioned by his gross and subtle bodies, free from the embrace of the gross and subtle elements, released from the charm of actions, such a one gets immediately liberated. So here, vishirna karya karanaha, the identification for the gross and the subtle body is weakened. What does that mean? It means that the karma will continue. Remember, this will also tie into the next verse. But remember, when a person realizes, it's not that they die right away, right? That prarabdha karma, or the karma which started this body, which started this experience, that is still going on. And no matter what happens, the identification with the body, mind, intellect, ego, that is completely weakened. It is weakened. It is not there anymore. So whatever the body has to go through, it's fine. Mind, whatever it has to go through, it's fine. Intellect, ego, fine. Where we really get hurt is we are so protective of our egos. The identification with the ego is very, very, very strong. So we're always looking for ways to protect it, to strengthen it, to make it shine, to make it overpower others. So what we have to do as seekers to get to this level now, I'm talking as a practice for us, right? For the realized person, it is weakened. But for us, how do we weaken it? Whenever there is an opportunity to break the ego, take it. In life, there will be two situations that will come to us. One is a situation which will break our ego, another which will boost our ego. And which one do we all like to take? The one which will boost our ego, naturally. We like to pick that. That's easier. That'll make us feel good. But whenever there's an option there, that this is gonna break my ego, this is gonna boost my ego, pick the ego breaker. Take the break. Take the break, because that weakens the ego. Every time the ego breaks and breaks and breaks and breaks, we realize it's falsity. So for a person who is realized, there is no issue. There's no ego issue. Whatever has to happen will happen. It's fine. There's no wanting to shine out, wanting to be here, wanting to do this, because the realized person knows that I am that same self that shines in everyone. There's no need to shine out. But for us, we have to cultivate this habit of taking that break, breaking that ego. Bhuta sukshmera navritaha, when we say he, she, whoever this realized person may be, is uncovered by these gross and subtle elements, means they're not covered anymore by the charm. They're not outward looking anymore. They're not fascinated, dazzled by the gross and subtle things in the world, by the enjoyments, by the pleasures, by the emotional thoughts and ideas. They're not dazzled by it anymore. They're now coming within. So what can we do to practice that, not being dazzled by all of that, is if we remember what we learned in Kenopanishad, right? From the sound, take it to the ear, take it to the one who illumines that ear. From the sight, take it to the eyes, can take it to the mind, but take it to the one who illumines that mind. So this realized person is uncovered, meaning not covered by all the dazzle, the glitz, the glamour. They very well can see through things. Their mind can very well penetrate to the names and forms, penetrate deep inside to pure awareness. So what we can also do is keep bringing that mind to awareness. And free from karma. So we had discussed before that there are 3 types of karma. One is the sanchita karma, the collective karma of many, many, many births. That gets destroyed. That gets destroyed because now there's no more doer, there's no more enjoyer, there's no more individuality to hold karma. There's no more doer. And whatever karma is left, the karma that's sustaining the body, sustaining the mind, sustaining the experiences or the relationships, whatever karma is left, even that, the realized person is not the doer, not the enjoyer. So therefore, they're completely detached from it. They let whatever has to happen, happens, and they just accept it. So in this way, they're free from the shackles of karma. And sadhya eva vimuchyate. Immediately upon the realization of the self, they're free. And the nature of the realization is not, now I became free, that I was ever free. I was ever free, and this is my nature. My nature is freedom. We don't become free. This body, mind, intellect does not become free. This ego does not become free. Rather, we become free from the body, mind, and intellect, and free from the ego. This is the nature. This is Vedanta. Vedanta is transcendence. It's not changing. It's not modifying. It's transcending. This is the practice. Okay. Let us see now. Verse number 52. We'll just maybe read it. Then more we can see next time. Prarabdha karma vegena, prarabdha karma vegena, jivan mukto yada bhavet, jivan mukto yada bhavet, kinchit kalamanarabdha, kinchit kalamanarabdha, karma bandhasya saṃśaye, karma bandhasya saṃśaye, prarabdha karma vegena, jivan mukto yada bhavet, kinchit kalamanarabdha, karma bandhasya saṃśaye. So prarabdha karma vegena. So due to the vega, due to the force of actions which have begun to produce their results, jivan muktaha. One is now liberated while living. So one is free, one is liberated while living, but due to the force of the actions which have already begun, due to the force of the results of actions, I should say, which have already begun, this person is a jivan mukta, liberated while living. Kinchit kala, for some time, anarabdha karma bandhasya, of the bondage of actions that have not begun to produce their results, saṃśaye. They have to just exhaust that. Means the body is there, mind is there, intellect is there, just to exhaust that. So the liberated in life, due to the compelling force of those actions that have to produce their results, remains for some time in order to exhaust them. So we also saw this in Chandogya Upanishad, and we saw this in Viveka Chudamani also. The basic premise is that it's like an arrow that has been shot. The karma that has started this body, mind, intellect, these experiences, it will decay. It will stop in its own time. You can't stop the arrow in between. The arrow's been shot and it's going. You can't stop it. It will continue until it falls. So in the same way, this body, mind, and intellect, it will continue until its prarabdha karma is completely over. And while in the body, while living in this body, that liberated while living, that jivan mukta, is ever free from it. ever free from it, ever detached from it, ever untouched by it. And they just let the play go on and on. That's why if you remember in Viveka Chudamani, there's no such insistence on how they die, where they die, when they die, what happens. It really doesn't matter, because as far as they're concerned, they're already dead. The ego is already dead. This body has to move, so let it move. This mind has to think, so let it think. But their individuality, sense of doership, enjoyership, that ego, it's already dead. It's already dead. So we'll stop here. What we will do next week is we'll take up a little bit more of this verse, and we'll do the last verse, and then we'll do the summary. Okay? Let's say the closing prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.